There is a word the Father only speaks at the end of a long road, not at the beginning, when you are fresh and full of fire, not in the middle, when you are exhausted and wondering if you misheard him entirely. He saves this word for the end, and the word is enough. If you clicked on this, something in your spirit already knew. You have been tested, not punished, tested. There is a difference, and most people never learn it. And now I want to tell you something that no one around you has had the courage to say out loud. The test is over. You survived it. And the place you have been crawling toward through the dark, it was never a fantasy. It was a destination, and it has your name on it. So pack your bags, I mean that. Spiritually, emotionally, in every way that matters, pack your bags. Because you are not staying in the wilderness any longer. My name is George, and I want to be honest with you before we go 1 inch further. I am not here to flatter you. I am not here to tell you that you are special, so you will feel good for 4 minutes and then go back to feeling forgotten. I have walked with too many people, through too many valleys, to waste your time with that. I am here because I believe, truly believe, that some of you watching are at the exact end of something, and you cannot see it yet. You are still bracing for the next blow. You are still waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I want to be the voice that tells you, put your hands down. The fight you have been in is finished. You just have not been told yet. Let me explain what I mean by a test. Because the world has a small, cheap idea of what a test is. The world thinks a test is a bad season, a rough patch, a run of bad luck. But that is not what heaven means by it. Think about Joseph for a second. A young man with a dream, literally. A dream God gave him while he slept. And what did that dream cost him? His brothers turned on him. They threw him into a pit. They sold him like livestock to strangers heading to a foreign country. He served faithfully in a man's house and got accused of something he never did. He landed in a prison cell. And then, and this is the part that breaks me every time, the one man he helped in that prison, the one man who promised to remember him, forgot him. For 2 more years. Now stop and feel that with me. Years, not days, not a hard week. Years of a young man waking up in a cell for a crime he did not commit, in a country that was not his, far from a father who thought he was dead. If you had asked Joseph in year 1 of that prison whether God was good, I wonder what he would have said. If you had asked him in month 13 whether the dream was real, or whether he had just been a foolish boy who believed too much, what would he have answered? But here is what most people miss when they read that story. God was not absent during those years. God was building the man who could hold the destination. Because the dream Joseph had as a boy was real, he really would rule. He really would have his family bow before him. But the boy who dreamed it could not have handled it. The boy was proud. The boy flaunted the coat his father gave him. The boy needed the pit, the slavery, the false accusation, the forgotten promise, not because God is cruel, but because the destination was so large that an unbroken man would have been crushed by it. And then one morning, one ordinary morning that started like every other miserable morning in that cell, they came for him. Not to beat him, not to move him to a worse cell. They came to clean him up, to shave him, to dress him, and to bring him before the most powerful man in that part of the world. And by the end of that single day, the forgotten prisoner was the second most powerful man in Egypt. One day. The test that lasted years ended in a single day. That is what I need you to understand about where you are right now. The length of the test tells you nothing about the speed of the deliverance. Joseph's God does not slowly ease you out of the prison. He kicks the door open, and you walk out into the destination before the sun goes down. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it in your own heart, not just nod along. What has your test looked like? For some of you, it has been loneliness. The kind of loneliness that does not make sense to other people. You are surrounded family, co-workers, a church full of people, and yet there is a part of you that no one has ever reached. A room inside you with the lights on, and nobody home but you. and you have wondered if something is wrong with you. Let me tell you what is happening. You are being set apart. There is a kind of solitude that is abandonment, and there is a kind of solitude that is preparation. And they feel exactly the same from the inside, but they are not the same. One leaves you empty. The other was hollowing you out so something could be poured in. For others, the test has been waiting. You did everything right. You prayed. You served. You forgave the people who did not deserve it. You stayed faithful when it would have been so much easier to walk away. And the reward never came. The promotion went to someone else. The relationship you prayed for went cold. The healing you begged for did not arrive on your timeline. And slowly, quietly, a question started growing in you that you would never say out loud in front of the people at church. Did I do all of this for nothing? I want to speak to that question directly. That question is not faithlessness. It is the sound of a real human being who has been carrying a real weight for a long time. Even the most faithful people in Scripture asked it. David asked it, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" Forever. He used that word. The man God called a man after his own heart accused God of forgetting him forever. So if that question has been in your mouth, you are not disqualified. You are in good company. You are in the company of the very people God chose. Now here is where it gets real. I said the test is over, and I meant it. But I have to tell you how you will know. Because the enemy of your soul loves to do one particular thing right at the end of a test. He loves to convince you that the end is actually the worst part of the middle. He wants you to give up on the last lap. He wants you to set your bags down one step from the door. How will you know the test is ending? You will feel a strange peace that does not match your circumstances. Nothing on the outside will have changed yet. The bank account will look the same. The diagnosis will be the same. The empty chair at the table will still be empty. And yet, out of nowhere, a quietness will come over your spirit. People will ask you how you are handling everything so well, and you will not have an answer for them, because the calm is not coming from you. It is coming from the one who knows the test is finished, even though you have not seen the results posted yet. You will also notice that the old fears lose their teeth. The things that used to keep you up at 3 in the morning will knock on the door of your mind, but they will not be able to get in the same way. That is not because you got stronger. It is because the season that needed those fears to refine you is closing. A test does not need its instruments once it is graded. And one more sign. You will start to feel restless in a good way. A holy discontent. You will look around at the life you built to survive the wilderness, the small life, the safe life, the just getting by life, and something in you will say, this is not it. This was never supposed to be permanent. That restlessness is your spirit smelling the destination on the wind before your eyes can see it. Do not numb that feeling. That holy discontent is a compass. I want to tell you about a woman in the Bible most people rush past. Her name was Hannah, and Hannah's test was one of the most painful a person can carry. She wanted a child and could not have one, year after year. And to make it worse, there was another woman in her household who could have children and who never let Hannah forget it, mocked her, provoked her, made the festival days, the days that should have been joy, into days Hannah dreaded. Picture her in the temple. She is not praying with pretty words. She is so undone, weeping so hard with her lips moving but no sound coming out, that the priest who saw her assumed she was drunk. That is how deep her test went. The man of God looked at her in her most honest moment of prayer and misjudged her completely. But Hannah was not drunk. Hannah was at the very end of her test. And out of that prayer, that broken, wordless, mistaken for drunkenness prayer, came Samuel. And Samuel was not just a baby answered. Samuel became one of the greatest prophets the nation ever had, the man who would anoint kings. The destination on the other side of Hannah's test was not just her own healing. It was a man who would change the destiny of a whole people. Do you see it? The size of your test is hinting at the size of your destination. Heaven does not assign a multi-year wilderness to deliver a small thing. The longer the test, the larger the inheritance waiting on the other side. If your test has been long, do not let that crush you. Let it tell you how much is packed into the suitcase God is preparing for you. And listen, this is the part I do not want you to miss, because it is the part that almost everyone gets wrong about being a chosen one. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived. Things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let me come back to the destination, because I have been saying that word, and I owe you a clearer picture of what it actually is. When I say the destination is yours, I am not promising you a bigger house. I am not promising you a check in the mail. I have watched too many people chase that version of the promise and end up more empty than when they started. The destination God has for a chosen one is not first about your circumstances. It is about your assignment, the thing you were born to carry, the reason you are not like the people around you, the work that only your particular wounds qualified you to do. Think about it this way. Why did your test look the way it did, and not like someone else's? Why were you given that specific kind of loneliness, that specific betrayal, that specific waiting? Because the destination requires it. Moses spent 40 years in a palace, learning how power works, and then 40 years in a desert, learning how powerlessness feels, because his destination was to walk into the most powerful court in the world and demand freedom for the power face. Powerless. The palace alone would have made him arrogant. The desert alone would have made him afraid. The test gave him exactly the shape his destination required. Your test did the same thing. Every painful chapter was a tool, fitted to your destination, like a key to a lock. The loneliness was teaching you to hear God when no human voice was available. The betrayal was teaching you to root your worth in heaven and not in people who can leave. The waiting was teaching you a patience that you will need when the destination puts you in charge of things that matter. None of it was random. None of it was wasted. You were not being broken. You were being fitted. And here is what tends to happen the moment a person realizes this. They look back at the years of the test, and a strange grief comes, grief for how long they suffered without understanding. If that is rising in you right now, let me gently take it from your hands. You were not foolish for not understanding sooner. Joseph did not understand his pit until decades later. What you meant for evil, God meant for good, he told the brothers who sold him. He did not say that in the pit. He said it standing in the destination, looking back, finally able to read the map. You are allowed to not understand a thing while you are inside it. Understanding is part of the destination, not part of the test. So what do you do now? If the test is truly over, if the destination is truly yours, what does a person actually do on the morning the prison door opens? First, and this is harder than it sounds, you have to stop living like a prisoner. People who have been in a hard season for a long time develop survival habits, and those habits do not disappear the moment the season ends. The released prisoner still flinches at sounds. The healed person still braces for the pain. You will have to consciously decide to stop bracing, to stop expecting the loss, to stop protecting yourself from a blow that is not coming anymore. The destination cannot be entered by a person who is still hunched over guarding old wounds. You have to stand up straight to walk through that door. Second, you have to let the test have meant something. There is a temptation, when a hard season ends, to just want to forget it, to pretend it never happened. But the chosen one does not waste the wilderness. The very thing that nearly destroyed you becomes the thing you carry to others. The people God will send you to in your destination are people who are in the test you just left. You will know their loneliness because you lived it. You will recognize their false guilt because you carried it. Your wounds, healed, become your authority. That is why you cannot just throw the test away. It was the tuition for the work ahead. And third, you say yes. The destination does not force itself on you. This is one of the most sobering truths in all of Scripture. God opens the door, but you have to walk through it. The same Israelites that God delivered out of slavery with miracle after miracle stood at the edge of the promised land and said no. They saw the giants and forgot the God who had just split a sea for them. And a whole generation that survived the test died in the wilderness, not because the destination was not real, but because they would not say yes to it. They preferred the familiar misery of the desert to the unknown size of the promise. Do not let that be you. After everything you survived, do not die in sight of the land. I want to tell you about one more moment, and then I am going to ask you something. It is the moment Elijah is sitting under a tree, wanting to die. This is right after the greatest victory of his life, fire from heaven, the prophets of a false god defeated, a nation falling on its faces. And the very next thing that happens is one threat from one angry queen, and Elijah runs into the wilderness and asks God to take his life. "It is enough now, Lord," he says. "Take me. I am no better than my fathers." Now, why does that matter for you? Because Elijah's lowest moment came right after his highest. The test does not always look like a long valley. Sometimes the hardest part comes right when you thought you had won. And do you know what God did with the suicidal, exhausted, hiding prophet? He did not lecture him. He did not shame him. He let him sleep. He sent an angel to feed him. Twice. He let the man rest and eat before he said a single instructive word. And then, when Elijah was ready, he did not come in the wind, or the earthquake, or the fire. He came in a low whisper, a still, small voice. If you are at the end of a test, you do not need thunder right now. You need the whisper. And the whisper is saying the same thing it said to Elijah after it fed him and let him rest. There is still work for you. There are still thousands who have not bowed to the false gods. Get up. The end of the test is not the end of the story. It is the doorway of the assignment. The rest, the food, the whisper were God preparing you for the road ahead, not putting you out to pasture. There is one more story I cannot leave out, because it is the story of a woman whose test looked like it had only one ending, and God wrote a different one. Her name was Naomi. She left her home during a famine with a husband and 2 sons, and came back years later with none of them. She buried her husband in a foreign land. She buried both of her boys. And when she finally came home, empty, the women of her town barely recognized her. She told them to stop calling her Naomi, which means pleasant, and to call her Mara instead, which means bitter. "I went out full," she said, "and the Lord has brought me back empty." That was her own verdict on her own life. Finished. A test with no reward at the end of it. Only loss stacked on loss. But Naomi could not see what was standing right next to her. Because she did not come home alone, a young foreign widow named Ruth had refused to leave her. "Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." And Naomi, in her bitterness, could only see what she had lost. She could not yet see that the loyalty walking beside her was the beginning of the very destination she thought was dead. You know how that story ends. Ruth marries a good man named Boaz. She has a son. And the women who once watched Naomi come home empty now put that baby in her arms and tell her this child will renew her life. The woman who renamed herself Bitter ended her days rocking a grandson on her knees. And that child, born to a foreign widow and a kind man in a small town, became the grandfather of King David. The line that would carry kings ran straight through the lap of the woman who thought her test had ended in nothing. I tell you that because some of you have already pronounced your own verdict. You have already decided how your story ends. You have looked at what you lost, and you have renamed yourself Bitter. And you cannot see the Ruth standing right beside you, the loyalty, the unexpected provision, the destination already in motion that your grief is hiding from your eyes. Do not write your ending while you are still in the test. Naomi was wrong about her own life, and she was wrong in the most beautiful way a person can be wrong. Let me bring this all the way home, because there might be someone watching who is not at the end of the test. Someone who is still in the deep middle of it, still in the pit, still in the prison, still under the tree wanting it all to stop. And I do not want to leave you out, because heaven does not leave you out. If that is you, if the test is not over for you yet, hear this. Joseph's deliverance came on an ordinary morning he did not know was special. He woke up that day with no idea it was the last day of the prison. There was no warning, no countdown. He simply got up, miserable like every other day. And by sunset, everything had changed. Which means you cannot tell from inside the test how close you are to the end. The morning you feel the most forgotten could be the very morning before the door opens. Joseph felt forgotten right up until the moment he was the second most powerful man alive. So whether the test is over for you or whether you are in the thick of it, the instruction is almost the same. Pack your bags. The ones whose test is over, pack them because you are leaving today. The ones still in it, pack them because you do not get a warning, and you want to be ready when the door swings open. Either way, do not unpack into the wilderness. Do not build a permanent home in a place God only ever meant to be temporary. I think about Joseph's first words when he finally revealed himself to his brothers. He could have raged. He could have listed every year they cost him. Instead, the first thing out of his mouth was a question about his father. Is my father still alive? After everything, his heart was not on revenge. It was on home. The destination, for Joseph, was never really a throne. It was a family restored, a father's arms. A famine survived because one man let his test prepare him to feed nations. That is the shape of a true destination. It always comes back to love, to being where you belong, to becoming who you were made to be, and giving it away to people who need it. The throne was just the means. The reunion was the point. So I am going to leave you standing at the door. Bags packed, test graded, the whisper in your ear telling you it is time. And now I want to hear from you, and I do not want a generic answer. I want you to do something specific for me in the comments. I want you to name the one part of your test that you could not understand while you were in it. The betrayal, the waiting, the loneliness, the loss. And then I want you to write, beside it, what you are beginning to suspect it was preparing you for. Not what you know, what you suspect. What your spirit is starting to whisper, that you do not yet have the courage to say out loud. Write both. The test and the destination you think it built. Because some of you are going to write that sentence and realize, halfway through typing it, that you already know exactly what the destination is. You have known for a long time. You were just waiting for the test to be over before you let yourself believe it. It is over. Pack your bags. The destination is yours, and I will be reading every single one of those comments, because I want to be one of the first voices to tell you welcome home. You made it. You are not who you were when the test began, and that is the whole point.